Okay, so I have shown you how to get your fabric ready and to iron both hems on either of the short sides and pin them. So now we're ready to start sewing. I am at my sewing machine. One thing I wanted to remind you of is before you start sewing for the first time and using your project, your fabric that you have for your project, you want to take a piece of scrap fabric and test your machine. Make sure everything's working properly. It's something you really want to get in the habit of doing all the time. So I'm just going to do a few stitches just to check to make sure everything is good. And I will stop. Bring your the lever, take up lever to the top, pull it up. I always try to pinch right here to pull the thread out, that way you don't pull your stitches. Let me snip them, and then I'm going to look closely here. Those stitches look good, and then if I always want to flip it over and look at the back side. Those stitches looked good. The first few are a little bit loose. That's kind of common on some machines, but after the first few it looks good. And usually you don't want to just start going straight anyway. You always want to do that reverse, couple of reverse stitches first, and that would tighten that up. So everything looks good as far as the stitches go. So we're gonna sew the first time, the first hem. Now be very careful. Now we have pins in here that we don't want to get to, but now we want to sew as close to this first fold as possible to tack it down, and you certainly don't want to go beyond where that fold is to not catch the other piece under there. So we want to sew right along this edge. So let me go here. Again, you want to do your reverse stitch first. So push there, do a couple of reverse stitches, then go forward. Make sure you do not sew over your pins. Try to have a pin cushion or something nearby that you can put this in. Pull this over here. And just keep a hold of it so that it doesn't come unfolded. And again, take your pins out as you go. And make sure it stays folded and flat. You got to do some work to keep it nice and neat. The pins can only do so much. As you get to the end, remember to always do the couple of reverse stitches at the end. Make sure your take-up lever comes all the way to the top before you pull the fabric out. And so then just do a quick check to make sure all those stitches looked good, and then flip it over the back side also. If they don't match, if the stitches on both sides don't seem to match, you really need to check your tensioning or other things with the machine to verify it. But that one looks pretty good. It's now time to flip it over and do the second side. And notice that I have flipped it over. This is a different fabric than what you mainly would have seen with the other stitch. I did make one where I did both hems on the same side, and so when you flipped it, it didn't look as nice. All right, reverse stitch. And something else just to remind you of is the machine's really pulling the fabric through. I'm not. I'm holding it back here just to make sure that it's straight, and I'm trying to make sure you guys can see it clearly. I'm not pulling. The machine should be doing all of the pull. If you are having to pull it to get through, then there might be some adjustments that need to be made to your machine. And do a few back stitches. And once again, I want to check the stitches. As I was going, the front, this side looked good. This side looks fine. All right, so now we need to do the folding to get it to that, I guess the right pockets made. So one thing is, I guess if you want to decide which pattern you want on the seat back and which one you want that would be folded up for the laptop to go in. It doesn't really matter. Most patterns that we're going to make these out of are don't really have an upside and a downside, because otherwise that when you fold it, it doesn't quite look right. But anyway, just which one do you want on the seat and which one do you want on the laptop. So I'm going to go ahead and do the flowers on the top. So when I fold it, now I don't want to see the fold with the right side, but with this we're actually continuing to sew, but now we're going to be sewing on the wrong side, and actually I'm not sure I'm explaining that right. Let me show you this way. I'll show you the one that's already made. If you see, we're looking at the right side of it. This is the laptop pocket. You don't see the fold. You see the stitches, but you don't see the fold. And if I flip it kind of inside out, that's where you can see the fold. So what I'm trying to explain is we're going to be sewing along these sides. So we want it folded such that it would be inside out. I hope that kind of sounds clear, because we're going to be doing these stitches next. So so I want to see the fold the way that I am going to fold it now. So I'm going to take a ruler, and we're on step, let's see, we just finished step 5. We're going to be doing step 6, which is to fold one side over 7 inches. This is the side that's going to go on the chair. So we want to actually measure as we go. That's it, about 6 inches. I hope, make sure that you guys are seeing this okay. Okay, right there, just about. I'm at 7 inches. And then laying it flat and measuring to here is 7 inches. So this side looks good. So let me measure it on the edge just to check it. That looks good. So I'm going to take a safety pin and pin it here. Because now I'm setting up everything to sew along these edges. So that's why I want to put the pins here. So maybe do 3 along this edge. And then move to the other side and verify over here that I'm still looking at 7 inches. It looks a little bit short, so let's pull it up a little bit more. Usually I would do this on a large flat space, but I'm afraid you guys wouldn't be able to see it very well, so I'm doing it a little awkward, but hopefully you have more space to spread out. Okay, so there's 1, 2, and 3. I did it wrong. I just told you guys I wanted to be able to see the fold, and I did it the opposite of what I said. So let me take this out real quick. I guess this is a good what not to do video too. Okay, so let's flip it over. Okay, let's try this again. quite 7. Hold it just a little bit further up. Too far. And I really do want it as close to 7 as I can get, because the pattern is such that there's just enough room to get the 8 inches that we want on the other side for the laptop. Not critical that it be super exact, but we don't want to be too short for the laptop, so it's held in there securely. All right. Okay, there we go. And then come to this side. Let's see if I have 7 inches. That's pretty close. Yes, there we go. There we go. All right, so now we have that side done. So we want to, so now we have, remember this is the side that'll go over the chair. So now this bottom half down here is where we're gonna have the laptop case part, holder, I guess. So I'm gonna flip the fabric over, okay? And then I'm gonna fold this bottom half that we haven't done anything with up. And what we ideally want is, to look at this flap is the one we just did with the pins in it. I want this to come up and match that edge without crossing over it. You guys, let me get down here to the light. You see there's the hem from the top, and now here's the hem from the bottom. So I want them to match up without crossing right there. So I'm going to, I hope we got this just right. I'm going to add a pin, smooth it out here, and then I'm going to measure it. And there we go. I've got just a little bit over 8 inches. So that should be pretty good. All right, so I will go ahead and add the rest, maybe 4 on this side. And then flip it over. Again, it should be the same to where we want this hem to match up to this one without crossing. So that should be right there. Again, this will be so much easier if I could lay it out on a nice big flat table. I'm trying to make sure you guys can see everything that I'm doing. It's kind of there. All right. And I want the heads of these all to go over past the edge. It makes it a lot easier when you're actually sewing as you're coming to them to take them out. Don't hide them inside the fabric or further down so they're harder to see. Okay. So now we're going to be sewing along the edges. Let me go back to the directions. So we folded 7 inches over and the 8 inches and pin along the edges. So that's what all these pictures show. Next page, step number 7. We're going to straight stitch along both sides at 3/8 of an inch. And the at 3/8, that's our seam allowance. So that's how far from this edge we are. Most sewing machines have the dimensions. Let me see if I can move this so you can see closer my machine. See, I have all of the dimensions here, and it's kind of shaded. Hopefully you can see that. This is a 5/8 line, this is 7/8, so this one is actually lines up with the edge of, oh darn it, sorry. The 3/8 lines up with this edge of my presser foot. So it doesn't have that marking on it, but I know that's the edge of it. And you can, probably the easier thing, whoops, sorry.